Ready, Mike? Let's do it. Oh, so that's 2 minutes. Yeah, all right.
Did you put in asking
Check, check.
Sorry.
All right. All right, good afternoon, everyone. It is 2:15, and I heard like an oddly timed lull in the room, like you were all anticipating the beginning of the session. So we're going to take advantage of that lull and go ahead and get started. And so we want to thank you guys for joining us this afternoon for a conversation about the Virginia Department of Education Digital Learning Integration Standards of Learning and some of the work that we're doing with those standards inside of Loudoun County Public Schools. So let's make sure my little clicker works here. Oh, it was on Zoom. There you go. Thank you. Perfect. All right, we're going to use a Slido this afternoon to get some feedback and some questions and things like that from the audience. We do have some virtual attendees with us as well, so it's going to allow us to make sure we can hear from them and hear from the folks in the room. So we're going to give you guys just a second to go ahead and join that Slido. There is a little passcode that you'll need to enter, and it's a little smaller and harder to see, so I apologize for that. But before you launch the session, it'll ask for that code. Sorry about that. He's going back. Trying to get the Zoom screen off. When we get to the next thing that we're going to need the Slido for, that code will be there on the screen as well. So if you miss it, or you don't quite get in there yet, you'll get another chance here in just a second. We can go ahead and advance slide to the next, Josh. All right. And I can go ahead and take this one if this is working. Yep, there's a little bit of a lag. There we go. That's all right. All right, so we are from Loudoun County Public Schools, and if you know where Loudoun is, you know it's way up north. We're down here in Roanoke. We're way up north, right along the Potomac River, next to Fairfax. And our school division has about 83,000 students, about 7,000 licensed teachers, and 97 school buildings. So that kind of gives you some context with a little bit about our size and so the scale that we're working with. So our educational technology team, and you're going to hear from some members of that team today. We work inside of Loudoun County Public Schools to make sure that teachers know how to use technology to maximize the impact on student learning. So we are inside the Department of Instruction, inside of our professional learning group inside of the Department of Instruction. We have a 4-person district ed tech team that supports then 96 school-based instructional facilitators for technology. That is our title for the ITRT. I know different divisions call them different things, but when you hear us say IFT, that's what we're really talking about. We're talking about our ITRT group. And so we do a lot of work around professional learning, building the capacity of our coaches, who can then in turn build the capacity of teachers, working with school administrators, working with district administrators, and sometimes working directly with teachers as well. We do a lot of thinking about what should technology use look like in our schools, how do we help build a common vision for what instructional technology integration looks like in Loudoun, and then we do a lot of collaboration and consultation with other teams to make sure that they're thinking about technology and how to embed it in the things that they're doing inside of their work. So this is us. This is who we're going to hear from today. My name is Mike Hendrickson. I'm the Supervisor of Educational Technology for Loudoun County Public Schools. My colleague Josh Tom, you'll hear from him in just a minute. He also works on the VSTE Conference Committee, so you've probably seen him running around trying to make things happen here behind the scenes. Monique Howley, who is one of our IFTs, and she's also a dual IFT and library media specialist at one of our small elementary schools, Hamilton Elementary. She's here with us, and Peggy Tyree, who is our IFT at our newest elementary school, Hovada Elementary School. And they do have an adorable bee logo. You can check it out on their website. They're the Hovada honeybees, which is adorable if I do say so myself. So let's talk a little bit about Virginia's digital learning integration standards of learning. And to start off that conversation, let's do a little poll to see sort of the level of experience in the room with these standards. They're new. So if you haven't heard of them before or haven't used them before or explored them, that's totally okay. And I see people responding to the poll. That's always good, so we know it's working. All right, so it looks like we've got a little bit of everything here. We've got some folks who are brand new to the standards, some folks that have explored them in some depth, and most folks have, just a little bit of experience with the standards so far. That's great. Now, I think somehow we missed our Q&A slide, but on our Slido, we do have a Q&A set up. So if you have the Slido pulled up on your phone or your computer, at the top you'll see two tabs, one where you're seeing the polls that we're showing to you. There's another tab with Q&A, and if you do have a question for one of our presenters as we're going through, feel free to throw it in there if you want to upvote somebody else's question. We don't have a ton of time to stop and go through all the questions today, but we will make sure we look at those and look for those heavy hitters that people are interested in. So the Digital Learning Integration Standards of Learning, the DLI SOLs, or the DILI SOLs as we like to call them, because who doesn't need a fun little acronym name for something that you work with, right? That makes it confusing to everybody about what that thing is. But the DILI SOLs, about those Digital Learning Integration Standards of Learning, these are an update of the computer technology standards that have been published by VDOE for a very long time. Those computer technology standards really focused in on rote skills, things that we wanted students to be able to do with technology, like with specific technology skills, like we want to be able to create a presentation and be comfortable using a mouse and send an email and things like that. Well, in 2020, the state updated those standards, and these standards really are more focused on how technology can support the kinds of competencies we want to develop in students. There's a lot of really tight alignment with the 5 C's and these digital learning integration standards, and they're based on the ISTE standards for students. So if you know some of the things that are embedded in those ISTE standards for students, you'll be very comfortable with those digital learning integration standards of learning. So on the left-hand side, these are the competencies that are laid out in the Virginia Profile of a Graduate. So critical thinking, creative thinking, collaboration, communication, and citizenship. And on the right-hand side, we have the digital learning integration content strands. So you can see there's a pretty tight alignment there: computational thinker, innovative designer, global collaborator, creative communicator, digital citizenship. There's almost a one-to-one connection between the skills laid out in the profile of a graduate and the content strands laid out inside of the digital learning integration standards. every single one of those content strands has some more granular skills broken out underneath. We're not really going to go in too much depth about those granular skills today, but you'll be able to explore those on your own. But today we're going to refer back to, in certain situations, some of our school-based folks, we're going to share some of the work they've been doing with teachers. We'll mention some of those content strands as things they were focused in on, some of the lessons they were designing and things like that. So it's good to have some awareness of what those content strands are. And in Loudoun, we're really excited about these digital learning integration standards and the potential that they provide for us inside of our work. We really think that they can provide a focus for our work, allow us to articulate a why behind our work. When we talk about technology integration, it can be kind of hard to paint a picture of what that looks like, right? And when we talk about the work that we do as educational technologists, a lot of times the focus tends to be on, or people default to or think that our focus is on tools that we're using in classrooms, the things that we're teaching teachers how to use, or the things that we're teaching students how to use. But our work really goes a lot deeper than that. And these digital learning integration standards can be a great guidepost for us inside of that work. They give us something that we can kind of hold up and say, this is what we can do. This is the work that we can do with your teachers to help make sure your students are achieving these outcomes. They can give us something that we can benchmark ourselves against and say, okay, this is what our school is pretty good at. And this is what the areas that we think we need to focus in on. And this is what I can do as an instructional technologist to kind of move my school forward in that area and to kind of measure ourselves and benchmark as we go. Sorry about that. All right. So I think we're a little jumbled up, but that's all right.
All right. Keep rolling that beautiful game footage.
All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about this project that we've been working on around these digital learning integration standards of learning. So last winter or so, we were approached by our Loudoun Education Foundation, who was in turn approached by an organization called Commonwealth Learning Partnership. And they had been working with Google, and they were looking for an opportunity to kind of have a school division dig in on some work around high quality instruction across different delivery methods. So they were interested in having some schools do some targeted work around what does high quality instruction look like, no matter if it's a face-to-face classroom environment, whether it is a virtual distance environment, whether it is a hybrid learning environment of some kind. What are some strategies? What are some techniques that we can use to make sure that instruction is quality no matter what delivery method is used to deliver that? So Commonwealth Learning Partnership went to LEF. LEF approached us and said, hey, this is the idea. What do you think you guys can do? And we started doing some thinking around that, and pretty quickly we thought we came back to those Virginia Digital Learning Integration Standards of Learning. We said this might be a really great opportunity for us to explore those in more depth, because what's outlined in those digital learning integration standards really is a roadmap to high quality instruction, no matter what delivery method it is that you're using. So we are really grateful for the support of the Commonwealth Learning Partnership and from Google for helping us to make some of this project and some of this work happen. So the work that we decided to do was to work with a smaller group of our IFTs, our instructional facilitators for technology. And we really wanted to build the capacity of that group. We wanted to add some tools to their toolbox to have them maybe think a little bit differently about the way they engage in conversations with teachers about the kinds of instruction that's happening in their classrooms and the way that IFTs can help to work alongside those teachers as a partner to integrate those digital learning integration standards into their instruction. So we put together a group of 25 IFTs. We did some targeted learning with them around the standards, around some tools that can help support their work with those standards. When we asked each of those IFTs to find a teacher partner or in some cases partners, depending on the school and how it worked out, where they would work with that teacher to say, okay, these are the digital learning integration standards. These are the content strands, the content standards that we're teaching here in the next couple of weeks or months or things like that. Let's look for some connections. What are some things we want our students to get better at that are laid out in the digital learning integration standards? Where might they fit with the content standards? And then let's plan a lesson to see if we can tie those things together. And then after we plan and implement that lesson, let's reflect and iterate and see what worked. Let's try it again and see if we can improve upon it the next time. And then the next step in our work here is to begin to share some of this learning out with the rest of our instructional facilitators. So one tool that we've given to our coaches here in the work that they're doing with these digital learning integration standards is a protocol called the 4 Shifts Protocol. The 4 Shifts Protocol comes out of University of Colorado from a researcher and professor there named Dr. Scott McLeod. Dr. McLeod has done some work inside of the state of Virginia, actually a lot of work inside of the state of Virginia. He's worked with the Virginia Learning Network, the Valen Group, which some of your school divisions might be involved in. And this protocol that he's designed is really a set of reflective questions that can help us think about a lesson design or a learning design and what technology is doing for students inside of that learning design. One of the things that we like about this protocol, and you're going to have a chance to see it in just a second if you've not yet seen it, is that it really focuses on what students are doing inside of the learning experience. So all of the reflective questions are saying, hey, who's making the decision on this? Is it the students or is it the teachers? Who's getting to do the work here? Is it the students? Is it the teachers? Who's driving the bus with the learning? Is it the students or the teachers? And we like that student focus in the protocol. And it's a pretty long protocol. There's lots of stuff baked in there. There's a lot. It's pretty deep. But you don't have to use it all at once. You can kind of pick and choose the things that you want to focus on based on what you want to improve in your learning designs or where the area that you want to focus on. You're going to have a chance to look at that 4 Shifts protocol. We're going to ask for some of your reactions to that protocol. And there's a bit.ly here that's going to take you right to the protocol. And that bit.ly is going to show up on the next slide too. So if you miss it here, don't worry. So the 4 Shifts has kind of 4 overarching strands, those 4 shifts, right? Shifts towards deeper thinking and learning, shifts towards authentic work, shifts towards student agency and personalization, and shifts towards technology infusion. And you probably are already starting to make some connections to go, oh, that looks a lot like some of those content strands that were laid out in those digital learning integration standards, right? And those are some of the connections that we were making too, which is why we found that these kind of go very well together. So those 4 shifts are a great tool that help us think about those digital learning integration standards. All right, so you should have that bit.ly there for the 4 Shifts protocol on your, maybe you don't. Do I need to go back to that slide so you guys can get to the protocol? You can also just find it for Google search if you just type in 4 Shifts protocol. It's one of those things that'll come up pretty quick. But here, let me back it up here so you guys can see that bit.ly one more time. I thought we'd see it on our next slide here. But let's make sure everybody has a chance to pull that up before we ask you to look at that. And if you recall, bit.lys are case sensitive, so just want to make sure you watch out for your capitalization. Everything in there is lowercase. And if it's not lowercase, it's a numeral. So.
Everybody good?
All right, let's go ahead and move forward. So at the top of the 4 shifts protocol, you're going to see there's a lot of background information there that Dr. McLeod and his co-authors have provided to kind of lay out the rationale for why the shifts are necessary and how to use the protocol. You can kind of scroll down until you get to those four specific shifts and the questions that are laid out to be reflective, to help us be reflective about those areas when we're designing learning. Take a second to just scroll briefly through those and share a little bit about what it is that you notice about those 4 shifts and about the questions inside the protocol. If you want to enter multiple things that you notice, that's certainly fine too. All right, we're starting to see those ideas pop in. Okay, so we're seeing some things like user-friendly, non-threatening, student-focused, pedagogy-focused, not tool-focused, alignment with 5 C's, making technology use meaningful, one of the reasons why we really like that the protocol is that student focus, as I mentioned before, and part of why that's such a nice tool for an instructional technology coach is when you're asking questions to a teacher about what a student is doing, that's kind of it's a non-threatening entry point, right? When you start talking with a teacher about what they have done, what did you do? Why did you choose to do this? That starts to feel personal and can get kind of scary. But if we start talking about, okay, what is it the students are doing inside of this lesson? And are there opportunities to change what it is the students are doing? That's a little less threatening. So thank you for that, taking a second to review that. We really appreciate it. And let's move on here. So what we've laid out for our coaches who are doing this work with their teachers, what we've asked them to engage in is a coaching cycle. And this coaching cycle is not new. You'll find this coaching cycle, there are a coaching cycle that looks very similar to it in lots of different places, right? But this is one thing that we're asking this is the cycle we're asking our coaches to use, our instructional facilitators for technology to use with their teachers. So first, we wanted to identify the objectives that they want to work on. Both the content standards the SOLs that they're teaching, maybe the next couple of days or weeks or months, and then those digital learning integration standards. What are the things that are laid out in those digital learning integration standards that we want our students to get better at? Maybe it's that we want them to take more ownership of their learning. Maybe it's we want them to be more engaged in authentic tasks, things like that. Once we've identified what those objectives are that we want to work on, then we work with our teacher to co-plan. Let's sit down and figure something out. Let's plan something and come up with a design. Once we've come up with a design, then we're going to use that 4 shifts protocol to reflect and refine and revise that design. So we're going to use those questions. Again, we don't have to use every single question in that 4 shifts protocol. If the digital learning integration strand that we were looking at was about student engagement, we're just going to focus in on those 4 shifts questions that are about engagement. We're going to look for that alignment. And we're going to see if we can tighten that lesson design up a little bit more using those 4 shifts questions. Then we're going to teach that lesson and see how it goes. Right? We're going to look for that evidence of student learning. What are we seeing inside the lesson? Is it working? Is it not? What evidence do we have of that? And then after that lesson, we're going to stop and reflect. Say, okay, what did we do? How did it work? Did it work the way we thought it would? What do we need to do differently next time? And then we repeat that cycle again. So when we're talking about our instructional facilitators for technology, working alongside teachers as coaches, this is really what we're talking about. Being a partner, working alongside them, journeying with them to think about how we can refine and revise what it is that they're doing in their classroom to make sure we're getting to those outcomes that we want our students to get to. So what we're going to spend the next few minutes doing is sharing the story of some of our coaches who have been doing this work with teachers. And first up, we've got Peggy Tyree from Hovada Elementary School. She's going to share a little bit about some of the things that she's been doing with her teachers. You got a fan club back there.
I do have a fan club, and they might have to leave early to go set up for theirs, but it has been, yeah, I know. It's a pleasure to be here with you all. I do have the honor of being the IFT at Hovada Elementary, which is Loudoun's newest elementary school. So if you've never opened a new school, it's crazy, but also so incredible. Everybody is in the work together, aligning the mission and the vision. So it's been fun, and we really do have a cute mascot. I have worked in Loudoun for 28 years, all at the elementary level, and 22 years as a IFT. So I've seen a lot of change. I came on when computers were first introduced into the classroom. We have 1,100 students at Hovada. So I have a little Post-it note on my desk that says, what did you do today to build capacity? Because gone are the days where I can get in every classroom. I can't. So my goal is to build capacity, and that really drives the work that I do. I love people, and I love connecting students to outside experts. And I've also got a passion for 3D printing. A little bit about me. How we identify teacher partners. Mike was saying in the beginning, we were supposed to pick a teacher, but again, along those lines of building capacity, I can't work with just one teacher. I have to work with teams. And so we have structures in place at Hovada, nothing earth-shattering, but CLTs, but they're really well calibrated already. And we've built a culture of reflection in our work. And so this 4-shift protocol has really just helped that along a lot. I also decided in that same realm of building capacity to have a teacher tech team. And those are one person on each team who's like my go-to to professionally develop specifically in the area of technology. And then they bring items to the team at those CLTs. So we use our CLTs not just for data, but for professional development and reflection on activities. Sorry, I should have clicked that before. So the first lesson, I worked with the 5th grade team, and we were looking at the science standards in the beginning of the SOLs. And when Mike was going over that cycle, I always start with the objectives, the standards, not the content standards. I don't really ever start with a technology standard. That's my behind the scenes push. So we looked at the idea of using models in science and how scientists use models. And then we looked at, matter, the SOL of matter and atoms and elements. And so the first thing we had them do is look at their lesson plan. Sorry, I thought I clicked that. Oh, yeah, I did, sorry. The DILIsol, sorry, you guys. The DILIsol standard that we looked at was that empowered learner and the innovative designer. So that strand was what I was trying to help them see a little. And we were looking at authenticity. Our whole staff is looking at authenticity as a way to get at deeper learning. So this is a bulletin board I have in my office, and I just took each individual strand of the 4 shifts, and when I'm planning with teachers, I'll just pull out the one they're looking at. I also have them in the conference room where we meet for CLTs, so they're at the ready. So they chose authenticity as the shift they wanted to focus on. And I didn't tell them, like, there's this new protocol and we're going to look at this. I just, asked them, where would you want to make a change in your lesson plan? So once they identified authenticity, I had them fill this out, and it was pretty straightforward. The lesson that they had done before was they built an atom out of pipe cleaners, and beads. So a lot of kids do that. And so we wanted to look at how we could change that. So we made 3 small shifts, and that's what I love about this protocol. You don't have to do all of them. You don't have to do all 4 shifts, and you don't have to do everything within a shift in a strand. So we decided we were going to look at how real scientists use models. We were going to develop an accurate model of an atom in Tinkercad and use that software like real designers do. So we put together a team of outside experts. My twin sister happens to be a geologist, so I knew I could always count on her. So I brought her in to be a spokesperson about how she uses models in her work. We met with a marine biologist who used 3D printed coral reefs, a cardiologist who's working on using 3D printed hearts before he performs the surgery, and a meteorologist to talk about models. So putting them in connection with them, and each class, we paired up the classes, and they met with one of these experts, and then they did a little jigsaw to talk about what they learned from that expert. Then they learned the Tinkercad and the basic design principles. That's where I came in and helped with those lessons. And then they created just basic models of atoms on the periodic table. And then they had to reflect on how they thought their models might help or might have helped scientists in the beginning in chemistry learn about atoms. So that was the first lesson. I'm not going to go into super great detail. Up there's the top, that's Emily Rule. I found her in a video, a YouTube video, like 3 years ago. And it said, Emily Rule is a professor at blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I'm going to find her and I'm going to talk to her. And so what my message here is, in finding experts, they are out there and they generally want to help educators. So I found her on Twitter. I messaged her that night. She got back to me. And the next day, this was pre-pandemic, she was in my classroom via Skype at that time. And she's worked with my kids every year since. This is our local weather guy. He's also in my bag of tricks that I bring out for all sorts of things. And then, yeah, they're just there. The cardiologist, he couldn't meet with me, but he put in contact with a colleague of his, and I found him on Twitter. So they're out there, and the world truly is flat now. We don't have to be having them come into our buildings in person, although that's nice. The second lesson we did, let's reflect on this lesson. The engagement was incredibly high. Students were able to articulate in writing why scientists use models. They gained that experience in Tinkercad. They loved it. And they want to continue to use that for other things. And that reflection on trial and error in the design process. When our team sat down to reflect and debrief and brought back that 4 shifts again, they just inspire me. Yes, they agreed that there were things that went really well, but they want to do more next time. So they want to give more open-ended tasks rather than just a model of an element. They want kids to get that experience of designing something of their own. They want even more opportunities to collaborate and then to go into that design process with a more authentic purpose. And then they themselves decided that throughout the science curriculum through the year, they're going to bring in the idea of models each time. Our next lesson was with the same team, and it was based on the writing process and also, the Dilly Sol of, empowered learner. And their focus for the 4 shifts, this was their normal lesson they started with. They wanted their reading and writing to have more choice and more student-driven products. So because they used to just write the summary paragraph at the end of the novel, they wanted the students to be able to do that. So I'm going to turn it over to my colleague because I don't want to take up all the time, but these are in our presentation for you to see. I have a couple more minutes. Okay, so sorry, I'm a talker and I will talk and talk and talk. So reflecting on my process as a coach, that coaching cycle Mike talked about, it's hard sometimes to have that in when you're trying to get in, but having that structure in place with the CLTs, that's what drives my work every week. We happen to have our CLTs on Monday. So literally it's a lot of sitting on Monday for me to go through 6 different meetings, but it really drives the work for the whole week for me. And I can sometimes just listen and know what they need and approach later, or sometimes I'm part on the agenda to deliver. And with that 4 shifts, now that that team is aware of it, they want more. They're like, okay, well, now what could we look at? And it has just made it easier to have that in with the teachers.
Peggy, you have one question
Oh.
that just popped in. It says, asking some questions about your pictures on the wall. There were sticky notes. Can you tell us about the questions and sticky notes that were on the wall?
Oh, sure.
That's the other thing.
I think that was a cool process. That was one of our team leaders who we were reflecting on the project afterwards. And yeah, this one. So it said, she came up with these questions. How does this novel study project compare to how you envisioned it would go? And they had to answer those. When you assess students' products, oh gosh, were there common patterns that you did notice? And if asked, what would a student say about the project? So it's just different ways to get at how the lesson went without, again, being judgmental of you, the teacher, because we're our worst critics. So looking at the lesson from those different point of views. And then in this picture is a CLT where they had those on the table are the products. And they were so varied. There were some digital projects, there were some hard copy products, and they just analyzed them and calibrated their assessment and rubric to see, did the rubric work? Do we need to change the rubric as we go forward? And in this particular case, they felt like the choice was great, and the students developed that choice board. But some of our kiddos needed more scaffolding because it was a little open-ended for some. And then they wanted to incorporate more reflection and revision with peer feedback and kind of that Austin butterfly if you're familiar with that. If you're not, look it up because it's an amazing video to teach kids about reflection and feedback. So I hope that answers the question. You're welcome. All right, so you just have,
Oh, I turn it over to Monique?
yeah, so you just have to click like 5 minutes before you think you need to.
There we go. Hi, I'm Monique Howley, and I work at Hamilton Elementary School, and I am the opposite. We're one of the oldest schools. We're celebrating our 100th anniversary this year. A little bit about me. Yeah, you're right. You have to click a long time. I'm the IFT and the media specialist because we are a super small school. We only have 156 students in our school. So both roles are combined. And this is my 11th year with Loudoun County, and my 8th year as the IFT and media specialist in both roles. I've always loved co-teaching, but this process has really made it more focused and driven to really learn about more deeper thinking. So for my first lesson, I partnered with the 5th grade team, and both my first lesson and second lesson were very different because I started my first lesson in the summer during an ISTE course that I was taking. So I didn't have the co-planning that would have driven this lesson a little better. And in our reflection, we definitely reflected on that was a really important piece that was missing because the teachers are really the content experts. We bring in the support. So in the beginning of the year, I went to my 5th grade team. I showed them the lesson that I created during the ISTE lesson, and we focused on the standards of science, and we were doing how animals survive in the environment and how they adapted. And I wanted to focus on a few dilly souls, but that was a lot. So I ended up really honing in on global collaborator, innovative designer. I wanted the children, the students, to really take the lead on this lesson. So I gave them a rubric and a driving question and some resources. I'm gonna go through that. And we actually, same with the 4 shifts protocol. When I went through it, I wasn't with the teachers, so that was harder. But I wanted to focus on engagement with the students. So I wanted them to take the ownership. So this was their lesson. I started teaching all of our students the vocabulary for the 5 C's. So we incorporate that in all of our lessons. So at the end of each lesson, I have them identify which one of these they've learned during that lesson. And they've gotten pretty good at it. So their driving question was they had to come up with a habitat for an animal that was going to survive at the National Zoo. And we actually had a field trip set up to go to the National Zoo, but we all know what happened to our field trip. So they didn't do that. They turned into virtual field trips. So once they did all their research and they did virtual field trip, then it was on them, they were grouped, and it was on them to come up with how they wanted to organize the way their notes went and how they delivered the product. That some of them used Google Drawing, Google Slides, some of them used Adobe Spark, and they had to cite their sources. So this is just one example of a habitat that one of our students came up with. Okay, what worked was the rubric was great, taking the big picture. So we took that big driving question and broke it down into lots of small pieces. We did the research, we did the virtual field trips. I met with small groups throughout the way. The one thing that surprised me at the end, and we went back and reflected with the students, it was interesting about, I would say 85 of the students, when they submitted their final project, submitted a slideshow with lots of images about the whatever animal they were researching, and a lot of just copy and pasted facts down the slide. So I went back, the teachers and I looked it over, and we decided we're going to give the rubric back to the students, hand the slideshows back to them to see what they could fix to actually answer that driving question where they had to give me a habitat, which the slideshow was not a habitat. And they all revised their work and submitted the work that we had asked them to do in the beginning. So that was really surprising. My second lesson was with my 4th grade team, and this was very different because we did co-plan the entire thing. And we focused on extreme weather. And the dilly saws that we focused on were, we really wanted the authenticity piece and the empowered learner. So we met all together, and we actually had quite a bit of people in the meeting. We had me, the IFT, the teacher. We brought in the EL teacher. We brought in me, the librarian, but if you had a second, another librarian. And when we got through part of the lesson, we actually brought in our computer science specialist. So we told the students that they were going to, first, they research the content. What are blizzards? What are hurricanes? What are tornadoes? What are these things? But then we wanted them to show us what they learned in a different way. In the past, the teachers have always had them read books or go to the databases, research the weather, make a poster of a hurricane, or make a slideshow of a tornado, stand in front of the room and give their report. So we wanted to do something a little different. So after a lot of dialogue, we came to the conclusion that we wanted to teach them what documentaries were. When we asked the students if they've ever seen a documentary, they said they had not. None of them knew what a documentary was. So we spent some time reviewing what a documentary was. I gave them lots of examples. We showed one that was the heat wave in Paris. And we talked a lot about that. These are serious videos, usually interviewing people, facts about what happened during that time, and definitely no bloopers at the end. They like the bloopers.
Oh my gosh, do they like blue?
They do. So when we turned it over to them, it was amazing what they produced. So they actually went out, they interviewed parents, students, staff, other people that had been through these extreme weather events. And we actually learned a lot about the students and our staff members and what some of them had to go through. We had blizzards, floods. We had somebody in a fire, a wildfire. So then the students in groups made wee videos for their documentaries. They did a great job. We're not going to play
Which
these,
one is the
but,
worst?
but
I don't
it'll
remember
be
the
that was a parent. So what we learned, what went well was engagement, which was amazing. They loved the wee videos. They asked for more. It was completely authentic. One of the stories that we got out of it was our reading specialist, or our speech pathologist. She was in a flood and her cat got stuck on the roof, and they had to feed their cat for days by throwing food on top of the roof. And that's just something these kids would never learn in reading this through a book or a database. It was just really, it meant a lot, and it was their teachers, so they could really relate to it. After, there we go. What happened to my other, there's a whole piece missing. Oh, well, for some reason, there's a part missing. After our after the documentaries, we actually brought in our computer science specialist, which is here in the room. Yay. And
White shirts in the back.
that's right. And we were collaborating, and I said, hey, we're doing a lesson on weather. And she came up with an amazing makey lesson. And she came in and taught the kids for an hour and a half how to use makey to code different clues on different weather events. So for the hurricane, they coded like clues. I have an eye, I have gusty winds. And we brought in another class and they had to guess what kind of an event or what kind of weather it was. And that was a lot of fun. And she can tell you for an hour and a half, not one problem, not one behavior problem. The kids were so engaged. It was amazing to see. So that was my journey. It was very positive. And without, I think, all the 4 shifts and the dilly saws, it really took our focus to get these lessons out to a different level.
Thanks, Mom. Man. So my name's Josh. I am the program coordinator for the IFTs inside of the division. And so thank you, Peggy and Monique, for doing that. It's always, it's pretty intimidating. Like, you're getting all sorts of like sparkles back there. It's always a little intimidating in the lights. I think a few things that I would like to reflect on in terms of my IFTs and what we have heard from this group of 25 is that and let me go back one other thing. You came in, it said Virginia's new digital learning integration standards, and we mentioned them, and then we hardly talked about them. So if you feel like it's a little bit of a bait and switch, it kind of is, because it's not about the standards. These standards have helped our IFTs have a focus and a reason for their work. How many of you are ITRTs or coaches inside the division, right? I'm going to guess your day is similar to some of ours, where you run around all day long and you're incredibly tired and you accomplished something and people are really thankful that you're there, but you don't know what you did when you drove home, right? Sometimes we don't know how to focus our work in order to go deep. Joellen Killian tells us a lot of times, she says, listen, we can have a light impact where we are assisting and helping, or we can have a really heavy impact where we deeply impact instruction. And so one of the things that we're finding is that through these tools that we're having deeply impactful conversations about instruction and how does that technology maximize those changes. And so that's something that we're incredibly excited about. And these two amazing individuals kind of personify the work that's going. One, we put that cycle up there because everybody needs a starting point. And maybe you're one of those people where you're like, yeah, people have said I'm a coach. What does that mean? How do I even do that? Right? You can start with that, like it's up there. It's not up there anymore, but you can start with something. But all 25 of the IFTs that engaged in this process did it differently. But the results were a change in instructional behavior. And so I think that that's pretty awesome. Where are we going next with this inside of Loudoun? Well, so here's the thing, right? We wanted to test this thing out on people that wanted to engage and play around with these things. And so this was this test bed of 25 IFTs. And what we're getting ready to do is dive deeper and have that group lead the rest. There are 96 IFTs inside of the division, and next year that'll be 97. And we continue to grow. And nobody is in the same space as somebody else in that continuum. Everybody has a different place in their growth patterns, and every school has a different set of needs and a different set of wants inside of that. I have two of my Loudoun County administrators that are here, and they come here with their IFTs, and I'm so thankful for that. And just like any other administrator, right, they're trying to slot in, how do we move my building forward? How do I attend to where we are now and advocate for where we want to be? And so this is kind of a neat way to do that. And we're going to dive into that with each one of our IFTs. And I learned it. I can't remember who said this. They said, let's not take baby steps anymore because that kind of sounds, let's take growth steps, just small little growth steps that we do. And that's one of the things that we love about the 4 shifts is that it's not this intimidating thing. It's not this huge change that we need to make, but it is a change. And it's about what students are doing. And so the work of our IFTs continues to be doing these things, but we are also looking to share this work and grow it out. This is something that VDOE has put out. And, we latched onto this because we saw a need in that this work could slot right into it. And so we're kind of like riding the very front of this wave that VDOE has. And we would love some partners inside of that. We're going to be presenting out at additional conferences like this. We're going to be coming to the Commonwealth Learning Partnership events, and we're going to be putting our stuff into Go Open Virginia. And so we would love for you to share in that journey along with us. And here's something here. If you would like, and we don't quite know what this looks like, but we would love to know if you'd like to partner with us inside of that. What might that be? How might we work as peer divisions and doing some of this work, and how might that be? And so what we're asking is, what are some of your thoughts along with that? And we also have a few moments. So what questions might you have for me, for Mike, and especially for the people that are actually doing the work, for Peggy and Monique? Let's see. I see a hand here in the back. Do you two mind coming up and we can do that? So we're gonna flight line. Who was my next person? Okay, so we'll come to that here in just a minute. Yeah. How did the IFTs choose, which teacher they were gonna go with? Mo.
Well, mine was easy because we only have 11 teachers, but I chose the 2 teachers that I've worked with before, and I know they are always itching to do more, and they are always willing to invite me into their classroom.
Thanks, Mo.
Yeah, and again, is that working?
Yeah,
okay, that big school. So I have 8 or so on a team, and I didn't invite specifically. I just listened at their CLT for the work that they wanted to do, and then I was like, "There's my door." So I didn't say this before, but I'm actually doing the 4-shift work with almost every one of my teams in different ways. And it's because I'm a true believer to be at those planning meetings or be at those CLT meetings, because you hear what they need and you hear those little invitations to be able to get in there.
Thanks. What do we have down here?
We are working to really pursue digital equity, not through the lens of provisioning hardware, but through experiences. We're really passionate about making sure all children have access to the same rich experiences. And we are at the fledgling stages with the DLI standards. We're excited, but what I want to pursue is a strong understanding of the rich experiences children can have with technology at certain developmental stages. All of our 4th graders make a podcast. All of our 5th graders can edit a film. All of our 6th graders start to become literate in, let's say, other platforms. Do you feel that this work around the DLI standard can map the grade level experience? And that's the yes or no question. And if so,
I have some answers, but people don't need to listen to me.
Yeah, well, you're probably more articulate than I, but I would say I've tried to do something similar with a scope to say at certain grade levels, we're all going to do these different things so that we know that they're getting those certain experiences. But it kind of pulls at my ability to be authentic. So I haven't figured that puzzle out, in all honesty. Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna let you.
Do you feel that it can map that level of understanding and awareness for schools?
So for me, it's not about those discrete skills, but it is about those 5 C's that come out of the profile of a graduate and what deeper learning means. And so it is my hope that as things spiral and articulate up, and again, that's something that's really neat about these digital learning standards of integration, is it's the same standard for every grade level, and it spirals up in its articulation. And so that is neat in its complexity, and its ability to demonstrate, and its impact. And so I see that over time having some things that congeal together. I think the fidelity of practice will determine if we get to a place that kind of you're envisioning and dreaming of. And let's see. And as we start to wrap up, because we're coming into it, I saw something here about like what does this look like in secondary? And we are presenting again with 2 of our secondary IFTs about what their experience has been like and how they've gone through this. In reality, it has not varied in its method dramatically from what we've done in the kind of the elementary world. So I'm going to hand things over to Mike just to say some last thank yous and things. And thank you to Heather Causey and the stream team for doing that for us and for everybody at home who's been interacting.
Yeah, thanks. We just want to say thank you once again. And if you have any ideas that were sparked by this, you want to ask questions, you have an idea that we might be able to collaborate on, please come and find one of us, and we'd be happy to think about how we can work together. I want to once again thank Commonwealth Learning Partnership and Google for their support on this project. They've been great, and without their support, we wouldn't have been able to dig in on this. So thanks to them, and hope you guys enjoy the rest of your afternoon. And if you want to find out what it looks like at a secondary level, you can come back to one of our secondary sessions tomorrow or the day after and learn a little bit about what those lessons look like.
Thank you all so much.